What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Monday edition of On Cue. Rich Quinones here. Don't forget, check us out on the YouTube channel, Rich Q On Cue, as we take a little look around the NFL. And we are really going to highlight another debacle by the Philadelphia Eagles last night. We welcome in our good friend Lloyd Vance, all smiles because he realized a lot of fans are going to have to eat some friggin' crow on this edition of On Cue from Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, 1029 The Game, Broad Street South. Kind enough to join us on this Monday afternoon. We'll do BYP later on in the day. We got the rest of the week. We'll recap all the games as we do, but we really wanted to focus on what transpired last night in Dallas because, at 10-1, all we heard was crown them. Best team in the NFL, Jalen Hurts, the MVP. And if you've covered the league like we've had for years, if you know the NFL, it's a week-to-week proposition, right? Now, all of a sudden, the Eagles get blasted by San Fran. They get dogged walk. And then last night on the road, another no-show in Dallas in a game that, let's be honest, if the Cowboys actually made a couple big plays here and there, aside from a fumble return for a touchdown, they could have easily put up 50 points last night against the Philadelphia Eagles. But be that as it may, the Eagles get waxed last night, 33-13. And now they sit 10-3. They still have winnable games, obviously, to try to get home field advantage throughout the playoffs. But Lloyd, I think it's a deeper rooted issue right now with the offense and the defense. But as always, appreciate a couple moments. Just your overall initial reaction last night to that 33-13 thumping on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, Q, it's a situation where the chickens are coming home to roost. And there were a lot of foreshadowing things, even though this team had started 10-1 and they were winning in fortunate ways where penalties were kind of lopsided, a ball was bouncing off somebody's hands and not being caught, etc. But over the last couple of games, you've really seen that this team has some true deficiencies. And we talked about this in our preview show last
Yeah.
week, where I've been harping on it over and over again. The middle of this defense, I don't mean to be mean or anything, but they're just not good enough. And teams are seeing this and they're attacking it. You saw Ferguson have a big game with the Cowboys across the middle.
Yep.
And then Dallas needed key movement, to get a first down. And by the way, on third downs, Dallas is 9 of 16
Yep.
for 56%, and they're 1 of 1 on fourth down. So when they needed a big play Q or in the red zone, they went across the middle, particularly with CD Lamb on those crossing routes and everything. And the Eagles just had no answer. And then offensively, Q, I agree with you. You always said they had no plan, and it
No
seems like
identity.
they go to the Chevy and turn around, and it seems that way.
Right.
Hurts, when you break down his numbers, he only threw to 3 targets last night. So he threw to Smith, he threw to Brown, and he threw to Goddard. No one else out of the backfield, etc., had any catches. And that just shows you this team is not making adjustments. So it starts at the top. Another ugly loss, 33-13 in Dallas on national TV. Everyone saw it. And this Eagles team, they have to clean some things up. Yes, they still have a chance to win the NFC East, possibly home field at NFC, but they have a lot to clean up here.
So you talked about Dallas 9 of 16 on third down conversion. That was the difference as well. Sloppy game from the Eagles. You mentioned the shoddy tackling. I'm not even going to get, people can sit there and bitch and complain about the officiating again. I'm tired. Just get over it, man. That dog's not going to hunt anymore. This team has been leaking oil because they were a couple plays away at home from losing that game to Dallas. They were a drop short touchdown pass from losing against Kansas City. They needed a 59 friggin' yarder in the rain to force overtime to beat Buffalo in a game they should have lost. And then they no-show against San Fran, no-show against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, here's a couple things I want to bring up. The last several weeks, 23-17, 34-42, 33 points respectively. This defense is broken. And I said it maybe going into the game, but then I said it after the San Francisco loss. The San Francisco 49ers broke the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, they broke the Philadelphia Eagles. You can sit there and you can say, oh, it's only one game and San Fran's such a really good team and they're a juggernaut and they should be, they're Super Bowl contender and Brock Purdy, the MVP and all the weapons. When you punch a team like Philly in the mouth, you have to see how they respond. They've been doing all the punching. And now all of a sudden, to borrow a boxing phrase, because you know that's my sport, you turn around, you start backpedaling on your bicycle. That's exactly what they've been able to do over the last several weeks. The opposition, that is, to the Philadelphia Eagles. So the corners are getting cooked. Let me get into this real quick with you. Defensively, I feel as though when you start to run guys in motion and you've got guys coming out of the backfield and misdirection here and there, it really confuses the Philadelphia Eagles. And when you look at the corners, whether you look at the secondary guys and Slay and Bradbury, who looks like he's aged 10 years, Slay can sit there and he can say whatever he wants after the game. I mean, how tired do you have to be if you're an Eagles fan? And I'm not even a friggin' Eagles fan, but I'm tired of hearing this guy pissing and moaning and complaining and going back and forth with Seth Joyner and then turning around and retweeting out his stats on X. I mean, no, you are Darius, soft-ass Slay. You are not Darius, big game Slay. You're just not. And the act is wearing thin, but this is what no one wants to talk about. Before the season started, we highlighted two things regarding the Philadelphia Eagles: a new offensive coordinator and a new defensive coordinator. You've covered the league for a long time. We've had many NFL guys jump on the air with us throughout the years. They always would say a good defensive coordinator and a good offensive coordinator can mask a head coach's weaknesses and their bad tendencies. And now we're seeing it in spades with Nick Sirianni. He got out-coached the last couple of weeks. And I have to go back and I have to listen to the presser, but explain to me how a head coach who thrived on being aggressive and we're going to go for it on fourth down. This is the second week now. He gives up a 4th and short opportunity, and then he decides to go for a 4th and 9, which shows me panic. He gives up the 4th and 3 against San Francisco. I mean, this is not like, what are we doing? We're picking and choosing now when we're going for 4th down. I feel right now this team is broken when it comes to their offense, no identity, and defensively, you got guys kind of looking around saying, yo, you got to make a play when they're not looking in the mirror. And that falls at the feet of the head coach. He cannot get a pass.
I totally agree with you, Q. And last week I gave my lackey and it's organizational dysfunction. And he is the head coach. So there's more to coaching than histrionics on the sidelines and wearing a t-shirt and beat Dallas on the radio, all that cheerleader stuff. He needs to coach this team up. As you said, I know Josiah was the defensive coordinator before for the Chicago Bears, but really that was Fangio's defense, and he's learning on the job. And you got Brian Johnson on the offensive side of the ball. Both of these guys need some support from their head coach, who needs to be more of a CEO type, get more involved in the game planning. Particularly, he's supposed to be an offensive guy, and you talk about that offense. They have not made adjustments, and a big key thing, Q, is the physicality, as you were saying, against this team. Dallas piled up 394 yards, and then 138 of that was running the football. So teams have learned you can run the ball at the Eagles, beat them up, and then they have no answer. So, there's a lot of adjustments to make. We know this down the stretch. Everybody's saying, okay, they can get right on these last couple games, because they don't have a team that they're going to play a winning record, Seattle. And then they have the Giants, Arizona Giants, to finish this thing out. But at this point in the season, Q, you wonder, can they fix this thing? They're going to the playoffs, and they're going to be a targeted team
100%.
because they can't stop anybody defensively, and they've decided not to run the football offensively.
Yeah, listen, let's go back defensively for a minute. I believe when you're having a team just run the ball down your friggin' throat, it's demoralizing. And if you can't stop me on 4th and 2, pardon me, short yard situation, it's like a battle of wills in the trenches. No resistance, no fight whatsoever. Even when you look at what they're trying to do, they have no shot with their defense. They can't stop anything. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. You got guys sitting back in coverage picking friggin' daisies. Again, I love Seth Joyner. That's my guy. Everything he was saying is 100% accurate. This is a man that played the position, the linebacker position, is such a volatile position, a nasty position, and to dismiss what he's saying And his resume in the NFL is absolutely asinine. I mean, Darius, sorry, not big, but like I said, soft ass Slay. Like, shut up and stop retweeting your stats and going back and forth. I mean, honestly, the Eagles, it was almost behoove them right now to actually listen to what Joyner is saying, listen to what some of these former players are saying. But ultimately, it still comes down to the head coach. The head coach, to me, at this moment, is not a head coach. You know what he is? He is a rah, rah, rah. I'm a man that motivates. I'm a cheerleader. That doesn't win you games in the NFL. The cheerleading bullshit, save that for Friday night lights and Saturday afternoons. It doesn't win you games on Sunday. It doesn't. So they turn around and he wants to bark at the get out of here, Kansas City. Humbled, and he ate some freaking humble pie against San Francisco and again last night against Dallas. He needs to pull the reins in. He needs to coach these guys. He needs to get on these players. He's got to hold them accountable. And I think what you need right now is you might have to make a call to Frank Reich. And you got to figure out what the hell's going on with this offense. I mean, what it is, it's go to the Chevy in the mailbox and cut across to Mr. Johnson's, and I'll hit you in the flat. What are we doing here?
Yeah, that would be nice, but I heard him and Reich did not end on the best of terms. So
humble yourself, man. Humble yourself.
He's a guy, as you were saying, he believes all their success and everything was driven mostly from him. And last year they made it to the Super Bowl, but they here's a newsflash: they did not win the game. Yeah, I know a lot of people want to cry about penalties in the Super Bowl, etc. They did not win the game, so they had that championship glide going into this season where they were like, "Oh, we're the big dog on the block, and we're just going to run roughshod over everything." Well, last year they had a run in the schedule that was nice, and they played a bunch of quarterbacks that could not play, and they get that big lead, and everything is going great. Everybody smiled. Well, now this season they've had adversity, Q, and teams have showed they're ready to fight the Eagles. The Eagles are the hunted. So the teams want to come after them. They want to knock them off. And as you said, Sirianni and all this T-shirts and this rah-rah stuff all over the media and everything, they got that target. So everybody wants to beat them. They want to give them their come-ups. And that's what San Francisco did. And that's what Dallas did. Dallas was not afraid of them one iota. They got the football, and it just went from there, Q. They went right down the field, put those 7 points up, and they said, game's over.
I want to get into Jalen Hurts a little bit. We need to end. I think Jalen Hurts is a very good quarterback. And I think there were moments this year where Jalen Hurts was at least top 2 or 3. I still think Jalen Hurts is top 5, 6, 7, whatever. It's semantics at this point. It's bar talk. I would love to have Jalen Hurts as the quarterback on my team, right? I mean, he's a very good quarterback. With that being said, when you have an offense that's broken and there's no identity, we're seeing it in Kansas City, you put so much more pressure on your quarterback to improvise and make plays. The ball security is now starting to become an alarming issue. It really is, because he's got 10 picks this year. I think he's got 6 or 7 fumbles, 4 or 5 loss. We saw it again last year when he breaks the pocket, the decision-making at times. You mentioned just keying in on some of these players. And I feel as though, when A.J. Brown barked a little bit, they threw him the football. When Smith barked a little bit, they threw him the football. Now you get Goddard back. He missed some time. It's like they're targeting. It's almost like they're looking for that one player. There's no rhyme or reason to the offense. And again, they're not trying to establish the run. And old heads will sit there and say, you have to have that run to pass ratio. Last night, they ran the ball 23 times. I think at the half, they had 14 carries, and you take away 4 design runs by Jalen Hurts. That's 10 carries. You bring in Swift because you think he's a change of pace back. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can run between the tackles. You're supposed to have the best offensive line in football, and you're not utilizing those weapons. You're not utilizing that. But I want to ask you, how much, when you look at Jalen Hurts and you go back, I would say go back to the Buffalo game, where it was, spotty at times, and then he made the plays, and he obviously had the big time scramble late in that game. He was sacked 5 times in that game. Okay. And he still had a monster game, especially late. But I'm just wondering though, that was a Kansas City game, pardon me. He was sacked 5 times. He came back, he got sacked 2 times, 3 times. Last night wasn't really touched. I'm just wondering, I know he's not 100%, but he hasn't really played particularly well over the last couple of weeks, and the level of competition over those 2 weeks has gone up. Now, mind you, Buffalo game we were talking about, that's why you pay the man. Kansas City really didn't put up, he didn't play well against Kansas City. He was 14 to 21 for a buck 60. I mean, he did not play well. His legs helped in that game with a couple scrambling touchdowns. Where are you at right now with Jalen Hurts? Do you believe he's forcing the issue? How concerned are you with the ball security? Do you believe the offense and the offensive coordinator is not helping him out by putting together a game plan that suits his strengths?
I've been watching them, and I think obviously the turnover is going to smack you in the face. Last night they had 3-1 to Dallas, and that was huge. And that fumble, as you said, that turned the game. He breaks the pocket, he's making that big play. But if you are that MVP type of quarterback that we've all been saying he is, and the fans have been saying he is, you don't fumble that football there. You got to have that ball security. You got to make a play, and when you're turning it over, it's giving the other team a short field. And then Dallas was converting on all those turnovers every time, whether it was a touchdown or a field goal. So he's got to figure out ways to, if the play's coming in and he doesn't like it, he needs to change it. You know what I mean? Because I don't think he's getting a lot of hands-on coaching from Johnson and Sirianni. To be quite frank with he needs to, if he sees something, change it. Because that, when you're a high level quarterback, you have the levity to do that. Check off to a run. If you see they're coming to blitz, do a draw. So change things up. And that's what Jalen Hurts is going to need to do in these key situations. Last night, 18 to 27, 197 yards, no TDs, no interceptions, but that huge fumble. And you talk about the running game. Swift only had 11 rushes for 39 yards. So he's got to spread it around and not focus on those three guys that I talked about earlier.
Jalen Hurts, 15th turnover last night occurred in the first quarter, as you mentioned, in a fumble in 13 games. He's tied for fourth worst in the NFL in total giveaways. Let me give you a couple names: Josh Dobbs, Sam Howell, who I think is going to be a player. Then you have Josh Allen. Below him, Desmond Ridder, Tua, Mac Jones, Lawrence, Young. Young struggled. Ridder struggled. Jones, obviously, we know the issues he has. You're right. When you're a high-level quarterback, MVP candidate in the conversation, you can't turn the ball over like that. But again, if you want to add context, 8 turnovers in 15 games he played last year. The picks are there. I'd have to go back and I'd have to look at it. See, I think the offense, they live and die with Jalen Hurts, right? And his ability to scramble and run and improvise and make plays. But I feel as though, and I can hear the younger, the analytics, with the running. I still believe you have to run the football in the NFL. I still believe you have to run the football even when you can't run the football. You have to keep a defense honest. And I can even live with, on first down, a screen to one of the backs out of the backfield, Swift picking up 4 or 5 yards. To me, that's just as good as a 5-yard run on first down to set up second and short and play action. But I just don't know, where this team is at right now. And also mentally, Seattle's not going to be a walk in the park. And I got news for you guys out there. The Giants aren't going to just roll over. They play them twice. And I'm not going to sit there and say that, Tommy Cutlets, the gunslinging Sicilian, the passing Paisano is going to light them up. But I'm just going to say that if the Giants can knock the Eagles off their perch and knock them out of, contention for home field advantage, they're going to go all out, especially with nothing to play for. The Eagles got through the gauntlet of their schedule, right? And they're 10-3. I mean, any other year you're signing up for that. But yet, it's an overreaction Monday. It's panic mode. Here we go. Get rid of that coach, get rid of the quarterback, get rid of the coordinators, get rid of this guy. That doesn't fly. It doesn't cut it in the NFL. That's why, they're fans and whatnot. But again, I believe they can patch the holes. I don't believe they can fully turn it around because I think it's too late in the season. So we always say you are what your record is. Do you believe there's some credence to, you beat up on some bad teams, you got lucky against 2 other teams, and then when you really had a legit opponent in front of you, you got smacked in the face.
Yeah, this situation where they step up in class and they have not equaled the level of their opposition. And Q, these are tough teams. And as I said, they want to beat the Eagles because the Eagles and a lot of their fans are pounding their chests and they said we were the best. Everybody's disrespecting us. Well, they had their two chances and against San Fran and Dallas, they've coming up short. And as you're saying, it's a game of possession. And Dallas had the ball for 36 minutes, so only 23 for the Eagles. You have to dictate the pace of the game. You have to play the bully ball. And for so long, everybody said, "Oh, the Eagles are the big bully on the block." Well, they really weren't. These last two teams have really showed that they have some serious holes. And I've always talked about the middle of that defense. Yeah, they brought in Shaq Leonard, and he got to get out there, but he didn't make much of a difference. Their linebackers are not good enough. Their safeties going into the season weren't good enough. And then Blankenship, he gets hurt in the game, and then the backup comes in, and he's having some difficulty too. So, this defense is what it is at this point in the season. And what the Eagles are going to need to do is make adjustments. These are 4 winnable games, but as you said, in the NFL, no one's going to roll over for you. We saw the Bears just beat Detroit. The Eagles lost earlier in the year to the Jets. I mean, you can lose to anybody in NFL, so they can't just roll the ball out there and think that they're last year's Super Bowl runner-ups. And it's going to be interesting to see how the season turns out.
Let me get you some reaction from people on Facebook. Gene chimes in, if they win Sunday, they'll win out 14-3. Quality wins. It's been a good regular season. 2 seed at the worst. Most knowledgeable fans know the Birds aren't as good as they were last season in the playoffs. Go and play and see what happens. See, I 100% disagree. I think the way the fan base has acted this year and this season, 10-1, we were talking about the best team. We're talking about the Eagles were the best team, throughout the course of this, the most complete team, right? So I think it's a little more easier than how Gene kind of lays it out. I mean, listen, Seattle's not going to be a punching bag. They're not. Arizona's a little pesky, and then you got to deal with the Giants for 2. So do you believe, 14-3, you basically got to run the table now. You have to snap a 2-game slide and win 4 straight.
They can. We'll see though. Q, they're going to have to take game by game. I tend to think maybe they go like 3-1 down the stretch, and we'll see. But the huge thing, Q, is the Eagles have always lived off a home field advantage and the bye, and then they only have to really play 2 games in the playoffs, both of them at home, and they're in the Super Bowl. Well, I don't know if this team, as they're constructed, can go on the road and win a tough physical playoff game against San Francisco, against Dallas. Right now, they'd have some difficulty. So a lot of question marks with this Eagles team, and last night's defeat did not help.
Chris chimes in, I'm concerned with the play calling defensive scheme as a whole. Never thought I'd say this, but I miss Steichen and Gannon. I mean, should we bring back Juan Castillo? I mean, is that where we're going? Sean McDermott, who probably saved his job yesterday. But yeah, I mean, you said it during the beginning of the season, prior to the season, I think during training camp, you said that, hey, new offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, it takes a little bit of time to kind of, maybe we masked at it 10-1, but the last several weeks, offense has been a no-show and the defense has been MIA.
Yes, and it's supposed to be a veteran team. They're going to have to rally around each other and kind of burn the tape, but they need to learn from these situations. They need to figure out, especially defensively, maybe blitz some more, maybe to change it up, because this zone coverage is not working because teams are going right across the middle in crucial situations in the red zone and on third downs, as I was talking about, and they're picking up big chunks of yardage. And, Morrow, that was a bad pickup. Guys like that are just not going to fix this situation. They had a DB out there, 22 Ringo. I was like, who is this guy last night? And he was having a lot of difficulty. He had the double penalty.
I never saw that. My buddies were all texting. Yeah. I'm like, he accounted for 25 friggin' yards. I was like, is that even possible? Like, when was the last time that was?
He sure did it. I don't know how he did it, but this is who they have at this point in the season. Everybody's like, oh, maybe they'll pick. You may try to raid somebody's practice squad or something like that, but the majority of their team is not changing. And this is who they have. There's nowhere else to change. And as you said, there's too many leaks, and how many fingers you're going to put in the dam and fix this thing. It's just it's just waiting to burst. And these last two losses have really shown it, Q.
Cody chimes in. What did I tell you guys? He, meaning Hurts, is the most overrated quarterback in the league. So much talent he cannot create with those receivers. See, I'm not ready to do
Too much.
Yeah, because if he goes out last night, 20 of 25 for 288, 3 touchdowns and a rushing score, and they win 35-33, we're not having this conversation. I mean, Jalen Hurts is, you really make the case too. Look what he was able to do last year, and look what he was able to do for the first 10, 11 weeks. You're allowed to have a couple bad games. I'm just saying you're starting to see a pattern of things, and I'm not going to bring up Carr's comments because we think they're asinine. But it's so funny when someone says something outlandish, and then that's said about someone, and that said someone turns around and, spits the bit a little bit. You kind of go back, oh, maybe this guy. I'm not going that route. What I'm saying is that I believe the offensive coordinator and Hurts and some of these wide receivers, they're not on the same page. Like, you have to be able to get separation in the NFL, and you just can't keep depending upon slants to AJ Brown to break them. You have to take some shots and some deep balls. So what do you think about that comment? Hurts overrated?
Yeah, no, I don't agree with that. There's so many. Number one, they're all kind of overrated and overpaid. We all know this, and he's going through a kind of a bad stretch. That was a bad fumble. We know the turnovers are huge, and you look at a guy like Josh Allen. People say the same thing about him, and it's all about the turnovers. He had a good win yesterday in Kansas City. He kind of protected the football, made some big plays when he needed to, and Hurts is just not making those big plays at this point. And Q, we talked about this earlier. I think that knee is kind of bothering him, and that's kind of limited. You know, with the Eagles last year, they run a lot of RPOs and those sort of things. But I always think if you're running too many RPOs with a pro quarterback,
Yeah.
those defenses and those guys, they love hitting the
Of
quarterback on his
course.
RPO.
Free shots. And there's got to be more to that. And again, you go back to the 49. Man, the NFL, it's all about the trenches, right? It's all about the trenches. And when you allow Dak Prescott to sit clean in the pocket, he's going to tear you apart. I mean, I don't care who you are, whatever quarterback's back there. But you also have to win. It's a war of attrition. You got to be able to smack the other guy. You got to be able to take the shots. And I got to use the boxing analogy. I just feel as though they've gotten a couple liver shots, and now all of a sudden in their mind, do they want to get up and continue to fight? And I think it'll speak volumes about the character or lack of character of this team if they don't figure out a way to get back on a run, clean things up. Because, man, I hate backpedaling, but it is amazing when you really go back and you look at some of these games. Kansas City and Buffalo, we talked about, having that character, signature win and tough. Can't take anything away from them. But there is also something to be said where you also got bailed out a little bit. You got bailed out against Miami, and we're starting to maybe really see just who you are. They're still a very good football team. Can they go on the road in the playoffs and beat San Francisco, Dallas, Detroit? Absolutely. But you would like for them to clean things up if you're an Eagles fan as the season is coming to a close. And that's the conversation that needs to be had. It's not what you did the last 11 weeks. Well, it's really 9 weeks. What you've been doing the last 3 or 4 weeks is really alarming. So that's kind of where I'm at with the Eagles. I do want to get your thoughts on the Cowboys, though, because, Prescott basically came out and said, look, if I had my A game, we're putting up 50. And you got the feeling last night. I text my buddy, I see 33-16, and it was 33-13. I did not think, I thought it was either going to be a blowout Dallas's way or a white knuckler. And, the Cowboys now, they're starting to get a little bit of that swagger. You have to put that quarterback along with Purdy in San Francisco in the MVP conversation, no doubt. He's playing at an extremely high level. And who's the one name I feel we have not mentioned all season long for the Dallas Cowboys?
Micah Parsons. Yeah, and he's dominant. He set the tone for the game too. He punched Lane Johnson in the mouth, bloodied his nose. Yeah, I don't know if he got to the quarterback on that play or not, but it just set the tone. And he is a game wrecker. And the Eagles have one too in Hassan Reddick, but I just feel like, yeah, he got 2 sacks, but then he kind of disappeared in the
Yeah.
game at points. You didn't hear Josh Sweat's name called at all in the Eagles game as well. And you know, this is a team where the adjustments are going to have to be made. As you said, they were playing well early in the season, but now it's the championship rounds, and you want to play your best ball in December, going to January into the playoffs, and these are the true contenders that they're measuring themselves against, and they come up short both times.
Yeah. So you said Micah Parsons, right?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you said someone else, and I thought you
No.
said Mike McCarthy because that's who
Oh,
we haven't said McCarthy's name all season
right.
long. We haven't had our annual hot seat. Get him out of here. Black Monday. What the hell is he doing? Why? Because winning cures all. No, Parsons obviously is a game wrecker, but man, there's a part of me that says, let me see it in January with this team. I still believe that what the Cowboys and the 49ers have shown you now is that they can beat the Eagles, right? And we couldn't, that conversation in years past or even come playoff time, couldn't really talk about it too much because we needed to see it first. And we saw what Dallas was able to do. We saw what San Francisco did. I actually think can the Eagles beat those teams that I mentioned? Yes, but man, I think they're going to have a tough time if they have to go on the road and play San Francisco in the NFC Championship. Man, I just see the 49ers pinning their ear back. You got a couple weeks left. Anything can happen. Guys can get injured. They turn things around. But I think at this moment, the Cowboys, they're starting to show you that they got a little chip on their shoulder, right? In years past, we would question their mental toughness, how soft they are. Dak has proven me wrong. I always thought he was a good quarterback. I never thought he was a great quarterback. I mean, that one touchdown pass that he threw last night, he fired in there. I text my buddy. I said, that's a friggin' MVP throw, man. I mean, you start slinging it like that, that's an MVP. So it's going to be tough to watch, man. I mean, it's going to be interesting to watch in the NFC because you got three teams that are top heavy and then everyone else is just a crowded backfield.
And they're playing with no fear against the Eagles. They
Yeah.
they don't fear them any longer. And and down the Eagles, as I was saying earlier, they're the hunted. So they want to beat them. They want to show these earlier losses to them are in the rearview mirror, and this was their opportunity. So I think that Dallas is going to be interesting too. They're at Buffalo, at Miami, they have Detroit, and they finished at Washington. So they still have a couple more chances to prove themselves that they're the true contender. And they're probably going to have to win out, as we said, to win the NFC East. But right now, they're better equipped to go on the road and win some games in playoffs than the Eagles at this point.
So I saw that David Carr tweeted out, "Hey Philly, y'all want to talk about it?" That's what I'm saying. Like it's just
but he's having difficulty, but don't say he can't read defenses. I mean,
listen,
that's
I
just too
know
much.
I know exactly what you're saying. I just feel it's people come out of the woodwork.
They're coming for him. It's funny too because, as I said last week, he needs to look at his brother's tape. He struggled once again. Ooh, they beat the Panthers barely. The Saints are a bad team. They're tied.
Yeah.
They're all 6 and 7 in that very bad division.
I know we'll recap. We'll go around the league this week, BYP. But real quick on Monday Night Football, you got the double dip, the Giants and the Packers. I think Packers about a touchdown or so favorite. They're banged up. They're coming in without a wide receiver. I don't think they're running back. I think they're going to go with
And they're
Jones
Watson,
tonight.
no Jones in this one.
Yeah, and Lawrence is expected to play for the Giants. So, listen, DeVito's it's a good story. Monday Night Football, Giants. They're still mathematically they're hanging around. 8:15 kickoff. I think the defense is going to have to cause some turnovers. The Packers are a good team. I think that's what we've kind of seen. All of a sudden, their quarterback is slinging and he's playing well. I think the Giants might be catching them at the right time with some of these injuries. I don't know if they win the game outright. See, what happens a lot of times is when you have these Cinderella stories, midnight can strike pretty early, right? So, Tommy Cutlass can go out there and maybe he's 16 of 29 for $130 and a couple interceptions, or he's 18 of 25, 225 and 2 touchdowns, and they win. I think they need to run the ball. I think you're going to see a lot of Saquon. Look for the defense to maybe turn over Love and the Packers tonight. I definitely like the Giants to cover the game. I just don't know if they're going to win it.
Both teams come in, I think, on 2-game winning streaks, and this opportunity for the Giants to step forward. Everybody buried them and said their season was over when Daniel Jones got hurt and everything. But the Packers are pretty red hot, but they have a lot of injuries to overcome now. The key thing is the Packers defense. They won't have Jair Alexander at the cornerback position, but Rashawn Gary and the rest of those guys who can get pressure on a quarterback should be huge in this game. The Giants, I don't think Neal's going to play on their offensive line, so I think pressure on the quarterback may cause some turnovers for DeVito. I'll go with the Packers in a very close win.
And then we've got my God, the second game, I'm drawing a blank. It's Miami, right?
Miami and the Tennessee Titans.
Tennis, there you go.
So what's going to happen. The Titans are 4-8,
Oh,
and you have Will Levis, who struggled at times, and then you have Tua and Tyreek Hill, who are trying to put up, record-setting numbers, and I think that's going to happen once again.
all right. You will be on 102.9 The Game, Broad Street South. Lloyd Vance's Insider Football at
Tonight at 8 p.m. we will get going, and then we're going to go heavy. There's still more to talk about on the Eagles, Cowboys. We'll talk about that, but then we'll also talk about this race around the NFL. It's getting pretty tight, especially over in the AFC. So it's going to be interesting to see how these teams spread out for the playoffs.
Yeah, we'll put a bow on everything tomorrow. So we'll have a lot of fun with that. But always appreciate you jumping on. Don't forget, check out Lloyd. Follow him on X at Lloyd Vance and 102.9 The Game. Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. 8 o'clock. I'm sorry, 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock on 102.9 The Game and the Broad Street South Network.
There you go. The shameless plug. All right, brother. Appreciate you jumping on for a couple moments.
All right, Q.